So for us, it's the first this kind of setup. So it will be weird, most probably, and awkward. As you already noticed, we didn't have any music on because I forgot to update the tool that takes care of that. And when I launched it, the Zoom started to pop on some
It just
different settings, and it was like, and it was just weird.
it just sounded like
Uh,
people under the water.
yeah, it was like a lot of things to do. So for those of you who completed the first form, you most probably got an email, and I kind of explained how things will happen. Uh, what I was mentioning that I thought that there would be like 5 people, so everybody will have time to ask questions. We are not a lot more than 5, but we are a bit more than 5. So we will go round by round. If it's okay for you, you will have the place to ask the question. We have some slides with the questions, but we didn't put the name on it. So if you don't want to ask a question, just let me know. But if you are comfortable to ask the question that you sent over, then just please raise your hand. I will give you the spot to ask the question, and then we will talk around the stuff that you asked, and hopefully we'll give you at least a somewhat decent answer. But you never know, it might be just bullshit. Uh, for those of us who don't necessarily know anything about me or Maria, I'm Daniel. I'm a product designer for like 15 years. For the last almost 4, I started I would say a boutique design studio, boutique product design studio. We mostly work with tech companies, or only with tech companies, helping them to redesign products. Kind of that's what we do, and we kind of use a process in which we combine product discovery and UX. I saw that some of the questions were around the topic. So yeah, kind of that's what we do. I'm also quite active around accelerators. So I mentored a bunch of founders in the last 3 years around Romania and some accelerators in Europe. And now I will leave it to Maria to say a couple of words about her,
Yeah,
and then
okay,
we will
so
start.
I'm Maria. I don't have 15 years of experience, so I'm more of a junior designer, so to say. I started my career in a startup, which on which like I learned by myself, you know, how you are in a startup doing everything that you can regarding everything. So yeah, and then I started working at Durran this spring, so more recent in this area.
Yeah, but she's doing fine. So kudos, Maria. Okay, and then I assume we can just start and see how it goes. The first on my list is Irina. So Irina, if you want to ask the question that you sent over, that's fine. If you don't want to do it, that's also okay.
Yes, I will ask it if
Cool.
I'm already
That's even
here.
better.
Yeah, so in March I enrolled in a product design bootcamp at Career Foundry, and I have a question for you. So would you consider hiring a bootcamp graduate for a junior product designer role? And if yes, what skills would you like them to have?
I hired Maria for a junior product design role. You were
Yeah,
not part of any boot camps, right,
Oh
Maria?
no, no,
No.
only
Okay.
my startup experience.
I don't have a problem with the boot camps in general. I have a problem with the fact that they overpromise and are usually underdeliver.
okay.
Uh, and there are some boot camps that try to work around this in a way. So they put you with some like put some mentoring sessions in it with like other designers, so they give you feedback. But I would say that there is a different dynamic when you work on a real project versus when you work on a bootcamp project. Like in bootcamp projects, and I kind of found the same thing when designers started to apply when I was looking for junior designers. Like everybody sent over the same process of empathize, define,
Yes,
ideate, whatever.
I saw
Uh,
that in portfolios, like they are kind of all the same.
they are the same, and this is where usually it becomes quite obvious that those people either didn't really did those parts of the project, because
Mhm.
usually it's not something that streamlined or that step-by-step process. It's a lot of back and forth. We try to somehow put it in buckets, and it works okay for some projects and might not work for other ones. But we don't use the define, empathize, define, whatever words. We use slightly different terminology there. So I don't have a problem with working with people from boot camps. I also mentored people in boot camps some years ago. But yeah, it's slightly different when you start to find out how things are working in real projects. And this is why usually when people ask these kind of questions, I just tell them to look out for a couple of startups or whatever you can to actually start doing those stuff that you learn about in those boot camps and see how it goes, and where you can or have to cut corners and why, so you can in a way understand the difference between the theoretical part and the actionable, actually doing the job part.
Okay. So you have this recommendation for me to
Yeah,
start looking for some real projects and apply what I've learned at Career
exactly.
Foundry.
And just see how it goes, it's like, because you will like at least the empathize part is like really challenging to actually deliver on. Like how you empathize, it's not like something it's not something you usually can do it behind the desk. And this is why I have a problem with people that just put empathize there, and we've done this kind of research, and that's nothing like empathize. It's nothing to do with empathize there.
Okay, thank you.
But maybe Maria, if you have any other inputs, any other ideas on this?
Not necessarily. I feel like it's definitely a good start, because you do get to learn from other people as well, compared to maybe simply learning by yourself and learning how to do those things. But it's exactly how Daniel said, that it's the work, like it's the hands-on experience that counts in the end. Yeah.
So yeah, in a way, the next step, kind of that would be kind of the next step, find some place there. If there is another designer who can help and just give you feedback, it's even better. But at least find a place where you can test those stuff that you learn about.
Okay.
Because then you'll figure out what's working, what's not working. But if you can find somebody who gives you feedback, that's usually a big boost on the next steps. Because otherwise you don't, like, you can figure out on your own, but it might take more time. And there are places like ADP List or something that, from what I know, they do even free mentoring.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. I guess we kind of answered, like, skills and characteristics. This was also part of your questions, right? What are the key skills and characteristics when looking in a candidate for a junior role? It was still from you.
Yes, it was basically the same question.
Oh,
but
okay.
Somehow you answered
I'm usually looking for more on the personal motivation, like personal characteristics, and less on the skills.
Okay.
Like skills-wise, I usually expect to have some knowledge in Figma or a design tool, obviously. But we had this issue when I was looking for a different role, like a more mid to senior designer. And we were actually discussing about this with Maria, that a lot of people say that they are learning stuff, but they actually don't learn anything. So I'm looking, usually on the junior side, I'm looking for, in a way, to that trait that they are eager to learn and open to feedback. Not just for juniors, but especially for juniors. And there are courses, books, and stuff that you can find quite easily nowadays, so it's not a big problem. It's more about if you really want to do the job or not, I would say.
Okay, thank you.
Cool, no worries. Do you have any follow-up questions or anything else?
How can I find these startups?
Accelerators, incubators, they are usually a good place, because there are actually not a lot of designers in these startups. Most of the startups, at least in Romania, they are engineer or developer driven. There might be a bit challenging to convince them that they need design in some cases. But otherwise, yeah, accelerators, incubators might be a good idea to look around. Maria, how did you found the guys that you work with? Does she actually work in a startup?
Yeah, we were colleagues from university, so we launched it together. But yeah, that's a good answer. There are a lot of startups like I don't know, innovation labs, for example, or innovators for children was another one. Fix. Those are just some of the ones that come into mind, and there are like a lot of teams in the beginning there. So
Okay.
There is also depending on the city you live in. If you live in Bucharest, there is a bunch of them. In Cluj, there
I
are.
live in Cluj.
Cluj,
so the
Maria
ones
can set you up.
yeah, just message me and then maybe I can look for a list.
Yeah, I would like that.
Okay.
The
Awesome.
innovation labs, it's in some major
Well,
cities in Romania
innovation
either way.
labs, it's the regional and then it extends on the national level. But yeah, we have innovation labs in Cluj as well. So you're good.
Awesome. Cool. Then follow up with Maria and she can get you all the other details regarding incubators and stuff. And
Thank you, Maria.
I guess. Yeah. The hub.sc in Scandinavia. Awesome. Thanks, Mihai. Cool. The next one then is Slobodan. Hopefully I don't butcher your name. Sorry.
No, you didn't.
Awesome.
It's just fine. I mean, we kind of have a similar language,
Yeah.
a bit similar, but it's the pronunciation and it's just fine. I didn't have any questions regarding this kind of things, but I was more interested in your process that you made for evaluation of startups when you were starting a new job for someone that already had a project. You mentioned something on LinkedIn regarding that, and there was just a few slides floating around and switching quickly. And if there's a chance, you could share more about it. And
it was
how do
regarding
you
the
choose?
MVPs when defining MVPs or something like that.
Not only when defining an MVP, that's interesting too, but more of a existing product that needs redesign or
yeah.
You know.
So most of the projects that like those kind of projects, we kind of split them in 3 big chunks or 3 big milestones. But the first one is, I usually call it context. The second one is solutions and testing. Third one is design. The context is as it's well, you can suppose it's basically figuring out stuff around the product. Like that can be challenges, that can be stakeholder stuff. And there we do a bunch of things. So if the product is already on the market, then usually you have access to 2 very important things: customers, or at least users, if not customers, and some data. Now, this data part is really tied to if it's set it up correctly or not, and who set it up and how much they trust the data.
Yeah, you have some data.
Some
next
data,
to none, almost.
Even if you don't have data, but there are already some people that tried out the product. What we try to do in these situations is we actually try to interview those people, and we at least create 2 different groups: people that are still using the product and people that use the product and churn. It's easier to talk with the first one, obviously, because they are still interested in a way in the product. It's a bit more challenging to talk with those that churn, but in some cases you can incentivize them with some Amazon gift cards. We've done this for some products, started usually around $25 or something. But it depends on the niche. If it's something more specific, like for doctors or whatever, then the gift card should be higher, definitely, because it's more challenging to find those people. For the interview part, in a way, the frame that we use is tied to the jobs to be done, interview sequence. So basically we try to understand why they chose this product, what other products they looked out, what was the problem they wanted to solve, what was the trigger when they started to look out for products, and if they're still using it, how they are using it, and how they find a product, and if they are not using it, why they didn't use the product. It's like very high level stuff. This is the first part, and from this you already have some assumptions regarding the challenges that are in the product. So you can kind of start drafting out a customer journey map or something similar with some feedback from the customers. The second part, it's 2 workshops that we do with the key stakeholders, usually founders, because we work with pre-seed, seed stage startups quite a lot. But there might be, I don't know, product managers or CPO or stuff like that. So usually people that are in charge of that, either the product, either that area of the product, and they can make decisions. And in those, we map some key information regarding the product and the business itself. So like, what is the product, the definition of like the value prop and stuff like this. We map out the user personas, also the customer journey maps, if it's an existing product that you already started drafting probably after the interviews. If it's not an existing product, but a new, then we do user story mapping. We also do assumption mapping. Well, I probably missed some stuff. Yeah, competitors and like high level, kind of that's it.
Of course, competitors.
And most of the, like, we spend quite some time on mapping out the assumptions, actually. And that's something that we started quite recently to do. Before that, I wasn't focused that much on that area, but it gives you a bit of an information of like how the stakeholders think about the product and what are the blind spots there. And then you have some assumptions that you can think about how you might test. And if we continue working with them, then we can actually test those things together. But if not, we just like create a list of, look, these are the key assumptions that you had that are not tested. These are some ideas on how you can test them. Some of them are quite easy. Some of them are complicated. So we had, even in one of the projects, we had something that was not quite testable. It was more like a friction between the stakeholders, and it was a big friction between the stakeholders. So I just highlighted the whole area. Look, just like sit in a room, you 3, and talk about this shit. Because otherwise it's like, well, I don't know what we can do. Like, everybody was on a slide. Like, there wasn't big difference, but there was slight difference in some key areas, and that's a big problem already. And then like you had the user personas that you define. For the user personas, I slightly modified the standard stuff that, or templates that are used, because I'm not that interested usually in demographics. So I went a bit towards the jobs to be done framework, and I'm more interested in like triggers, motivations, fears, frustration, stuff like this. And the customer journey, that's quite easy. So once you have all this information, then you kind of have mapped out the context, and you have a somewhat good understanding of the business case, and the challenges they face. And from that, we go towards a workshop that's similar to, it's quite similar to the design sprint, basically. So we gather the team together, we create the prototypes, then we go and test the prototypes with their customers, we collect the feedback. Now, in the last sessions, we worked with a UX researcher, so we uploaded everything in Dovetail, extracted all the insights through Dovetail, created even video highlights of what the people said, and at one point, and the heat map of like task and customer, so you could see quite easily where were the challenges in the flow. We present all that information back to the founders, and then we usually make some decisions about what we will change in the design. Like high level, kind of this is the process. The design process is quite the standard stuff. We do the design system and or the UI library, name it as you want, and the screens and the flows that's needed.
Yeah, thank you. I was asking because I had similar challenges with a couple of projects similar to that. So especially something that customer already had something, and I kind of had a hard time selling them the whole research, the whole
Yeah, people usually
user
don't buy
experience
research.
process. Yeah.
I don't sell research separate. I don't say like we do research. It's like, oh, this is our process and this is how we are doing it.
Not really like that. I mean, they need to understand it takes some serious chunk of time to not only to do the research, to interview the users or everything in between. They consider the deliverable exclusively the UI, and I had the challenge to explain that and how this influenced that and why and how, etc.
Yeah.
So I even had a problem with one, like yeah, I need users, I need some information, some data. Oh yeah, we have data. Here's our Google Analytics.
Yeah, in
And
some cases it
that's done. Let's
works.
go to UI.
In some cases it works. It really depends on also how big the problem is, how well they understand what's happening. Like for me, what worked the best is when we were doing these stuff with clients that they already tried the way that you mentioned. Like we just need the UI, don't care about the rest of it. So that in that case, it was much easier to explain. Look, you tried that version, it didn't really deliver. Let's try this version now and see how it goes. But yeah, it's not working for everybody. So I don't know. I don't have a magic
Yeah,
answer
yeah.
for this. Usually, I don't say that we
No
can do
one
it
has.
without research. It
Yes, of
depends on a
course.
couple of things, you know. It depends on the clients. It depends on you in a way, and even for us sometimes it's a question, you know, it's like, oh, we can say no to the project and like not do anything on it, or we scope it down. In some cases we scope it down and we do research in a different way. So it also it depends on how much you want to impact the product. So there is a couple of things that you have to think about, but yeah, it's not. Oh, what worked at one point, and I'm actually thinking about doing this again, and with some clients, especially when I was doing this in the beginning, I actually booked a 1 hour, 45 minutes like presentation. And it was like a couple of slides. We went through the whole process. I explained why we are doing the stuff as we are doing it and the inspiration that they comes and the whole stuff. So it was almost like running a presentation, or as nowadays everybody calls it a workshop. It's not a workshop, it's just a presentation.
Yeah, it's just a presentation. Yeah, that might work actually.
I remember that
have
I've done that for my first client in this process. And we've done like a 1 hour presentation with a Q&A at the end. And I explained like the whole process and how the process came to life. So it's not something that I invented overnight. It's like, this is all the inspiration. This is how other people are using it. And this is why we are doing it in this specific way.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Cool. Then if you need anything, slides or stuff, just message me and I can send over stuff. So, or we can sync after the call.
Yeah, sure.
Awesome. And who's next? Let me see. So we have, do we have Vlad? No, I guess it's not Vlad here, right? Then Daniela is the next one.
Hi.
If you want to ask the question. If not, it's not a problem.
Yes. Do you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. So I joined a little later, and I hope that I will not ask something that was already answered, even though you just answered what I was about to ask in parts. And so just to explain why I'm asking this, I started working as a junior designer a few months ago, at the beginning of the year. And I consider myself a junior, but I am actually the only one, like the only designer. And I am in a team with a product manager and 2 developers, like a front end and a back end. And my question is about presenting the designs, and after getting feedback and iterating, presenting the new designs, and how do I present them more confidently, and how do I defend them when I get feedback normally from the developers. And I get a bit confused because when they tell me that, for example, it's not that easy to implement something, I don't know, should I just try to push and try to convince them, or just to agree. And also, when I don't have enough experience, let's say, I try to look for inspiration and for best practices in different places and in the competitors. And normally, when I suggest something, it's based on some competitor or some assumption. And I think this is where my lack of confidence comes from. And also the product that we're working on is still non-existent. So there are even more assumptions.
Okay. Non-existent in the sense that it's still developing and it will be launched at some point, or?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
We have a few people who we are using to test the prototypes, but we haven't launched yet.
Okay, and the testing part, it's up to you. So you are testing the prototype, or is somebody else in charge of that?
Everybody is in charge of it. We are split in a few groups, and I suggested that we are at least 2 people present when somebody is testing. And the others agreed, so we are like 3 groups from 2 people in a team, and we are just observing how the user is going through the prototype, and then we just ask some questions to clarify what is not clear. So it's really early, but sometimes when we notice that people get confused and we try to iterate that, then everybody starts to suggest different things, and we cannot get to a decision how to make the product look or the flow.
Ooh,
I don't know if I explained it.
No, that's fine. That's
fully.
fine. We can unpack it. It's no problem. There are a couple of things. Like usually when developers say that something takes more time, a lot of times it happens that they use some kind of libraries. Most of the developers use at one point some kind of libraries. So it might be a good idea to talk with them before and just see what kind of libraries they are using, so you can design on top of that. And then the speed of implementation, it's kind of off the table if you don't make some crazy moves there, but otherwise it's kind of off the table. Regarding the research phase, it's normal to make research on the competitors. I would actually highly suggest to do for most of the stuff, not just for the bigger tasks or something that's not that obvious. Because what a lot of designers end up doing, especially in the beginning, is that they almost try to reinvent the wheel in a way. Instead of like just looking out what's already existing and working and tested, they just try to make something that's like, I don't know, new or innovative or whatever. And then, yeah, it might be a problem with how that's implemented. If that makes sense for you.
Yes, it does. We had more of that problematic stuff at the beginning. Then they showed me what libraries they're using, and I do have some references. And also about the other part where how do I present the iterations? Usually what we do is just go straight to the new designs. But just now that you mentioned about this presentation that you made with like the different not
Like the
different
process.
yes with
Mhm.
with the different parts, like where the customers have problems
Mhm.
and where the personas are and how these connect. Do you think that it's a good idea for me to do something like this, for example, with the old design?
I can
And
tell you how I ended up doing this process because probably
okay.
that kind of answered the question. Like I was doing design kind of the same way as like everybody's doing this. Most of the people were doing design back then. You look up the internet, you just go to Dribble, Behance, Google search, and YouTube, and just look out what others are doing, and you try to replicate that. Now, usually when you're doing this combined with the fact that there is not necessarily a strategy behind the product, and like most of the things are kind of up in the air, then the discussions on the design side end up being something like, I don't like this font, I don't like this color, I think the button should be bigger, like stuff that you can just waste a lot of time on, and the impact overall on the product, it's up to mostly nothing most of the case. So because like the whole discussion is very subjective, you just discuss about what I think or what I like, but you don't discuss about what you're building and why you make those decisions. Now in this situation, in a way, you have to go back towards like what you are building and why you are building in that way. So you have to not necessarily, it might not be justified the right word for this, but you have to explain to the developers or who critique your design how you made the decisions that you made and why you made those specific decisions. And then here you come back to the research phase and these kind of stuff that you can anchor in a way your decision in. So do you have a defined user persona or not? Do you have defined guidelines or stuff that you have to know regarding the development phase or not? Do you have a customer flow or user journey or customer journey map or something similar or not? Because if you don't have anything like this, then most of the times the discussions will be just around the fact that I like or I don't like something.
Yes, we do have we do have some of these materials, but they are not very rich, let's say. We don't really know the customers and the users yet, and the idea was to get to know them while we are designing and developing. And
It's really expensive to learn about the customers while you're developing a product. It's cheaper to
yes,
do it while you're designing a product,
yes,
and also faster.
this is starting to be a problem now after a few months.
How much, I don't know how much you can tell us about this, but at least what kind of domain is the product in?
It's like a platform for people to register and make a profile and connect with recruiters and HRs. So it's not like a complete CV profile or like you don't upload your resume or anything, just your interests and whatever kind of background you want, and you can connect with other people in the same industry and some recruiters who are interested in people in this
So it's kind of like a
industry.
networking platform?
Yes, something like this.
Okay, and kind of what's the problem that you want to solve with this, or the owner or the founder wants to solve this with this? Because there are a bunch of networking platforms.
Yes, but not in our country, not in
Okay.
our language. So we want to have something that is like in our native language for the people who do not speak English and are not like, for them it's not necessary to know English. But we have a problem with how much like people who are not speaking English are actually using digital networking
Oh, yeah, you are in a
platforms.
similar situation as Romania, most probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had this kind of like, I remember when I was mentoring in incubators around here, that people wanted to create these kind of products that they, in a way, digitize something for the digital native people. The problem with some of them were exactly like this. Yeah, they weren't on the internet in some cases, so you have to figure that out first. And then in a way, it goes back to the fact that, okay, let's assume that those people, that there are a large amount of people that are interested in this. They are not necessarily English speakers. Then you have to figure out how you can reach out to them, because if you don't figure out how you can reach out to them, then you can figure out how to actually onboard them in the product. So it might be a good idea to talk with the founder or owner who's in charge of the product to see if they can connect you with this specific type of people that they target, because otherwise it might end up just building something that nobody will actually use, because you don't know, like, who's in charge of this won't know how to target those people and how to find them.
Yes.
Or
Yes.
they might not be a big enough problem. That's the second part. It might be not a big enough problem or a big enough market.
Yeah. I think that this is that's why it's hard for me to recognize. Am I sometimes like, do I lack confidence sometimes because I really don't know like the users, and I cannot back up like my suggestions so much with information, but just with some assumptions and observations of the competitors? Or is the lack of confidence coming from the fact that I am new and I don't have that much
I would say that the second one, it's a lack of confidence. The first one is a lack of knowledge. But even for the founder/founding team, it would be quite challenging to give you feedback other than I like or I don't like this if they don't know who will actually use the product.
Yes, I agree.
So it would be better to somehow find a way to talk with the people that will use the product, or they think that it will use the product, and then just work it backwards from there, because otherwise the discussions will be just around I like this or I don't like this, or this product has this feature or this whatever, and ours didn't.
Yes, I agree. Thank you.
And for that phase, yeah, you can basically maybe create a small workshop or something with the people in charge, and like try to map out whatever they know regarding the users, and even if they are not users, it might be just a target customer profile or something like that, because they might not be users yet. So I will start with that, maybe map out some competitors, like figure out kind of what they are thinking the competitors are. And then if you want to go like ballistics, you can do assumption mapping.
Okay. I haven't. I am not sure if I know what assumption mapping is. I will search for it, but is there
Just
some?
message me on LinkedIn. I will send over a link about assumption mapping.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
No, I think
Awesome.
that you gave me pretty good direction.
So if you just want to work on the confidence part, tie it back to research, but it's hard to do the research phase correctly if you don't know who you want to target as what kind of customer and what kind of problems you want to solve.
Okay. Thank
Awesome.
you.
Thanks. Next one, it's Anna.
Oh, hello.
Hi.
I'm happy that I'm going after Daniela because I wanted to continue something on the same idea. She mentioned that developers often use component libraries that don't always align with the design. I'm also a developer, and that's my concern as well. Well, in my experience, when our UI UX team introduces a new like fancy component, I'm excited about that because I enjoy building UI components from scratch.
Mhm.
Yeah, not everybody likes it, and maybe there are also some time constraints. I think you need to establish that in the beginning. So do you have enough time and resources to build a design system which is 100% original and fancy and whatever? Or can you also use some predefined component libraries? That's a pretty important aspect.
Yeah, there is also one thing, just to mention one more thing regarding it. It's not just about building it, but also maintaining it.
Yes, and that's a pretty important one. Yeah, and testing it.
Mhm.
Yeah, but one of my questions, I think, were regarding this design system file and when exactly is it created? Because in my current job, I still do encounter a lot of buttons or fonts or I don't know, simple things like these components, which are not included in the design system file. So after a few months of development, I do have a design file in my project, which includes the buttons, the fonts, and I don't know, cards and so on, borders, spacings, and like things like that. And I do have a semantics bounded to them. Like this is the small button, this is the medium button, and yeah, you know.
Yeah.
I don't really know what should we do when we encounter a button which theoretically it is present in the design system because it has the same name and the link to it. I'm talking about Figma here. But it has a different size and a different color and a different border, let's say. So it is kind of reused, but it's a variation of that component.
Good question.
Where is the problem?
Have the best answer. I can tell you, in my opinion, what's the problem, but I'm not necessarily, I'm not an expert on design systems. I think that there are designers that in a way overdo this at early stage when you actually might just end up working on useless stuff. So if the project is something that's big and you need a design system, that's fine. Also, it depends on, like, some people use design system for different stuff, not just the standard design system, but some call it even the UI kit a design system. Sometimes the UI kit is good enough in the beginning and you can start with that. Sometimes you need more. Usually these kind of problems occur when there are, in a way, a lack of discussion between developers and designers. Because if I, as a designer, I introduce a new component, whatever it's a button or whatever it is, there should be a reason behind why I've done that. It's not just the fact that I didn't like the 4 other ones that I already had in the design system.
Okay, such that the developer will know then, is this component reusable or do I need it only
Exactly, yeah.
part of the project?
Yeah, it's just here or we will reuse it from this point on. Okay. Why you created another button if we already had X amount of buttons? Do we really need this? Because it's not just the fact that you create a button, it's also you have to maintain that button.
Yeah. And how perfect should this design be, the Figma designs that you provide to your clients, for instance, to your developers? I mean, to your colleague developers.
We don't have developers in the team. We work with the development teams, depending on, yeah.
For instance,
I'm not a pixel Nazi, so it's really hard to answer this.
Okay, but let's say you have most of your cards and your components they have a border radius, let's say.
Yeah.
I think that's an important one.
Yeah, if you have a UI kit, basically you define everything in the UI kit and then you reuse it. And it's the same if you have a UI kit / a design system. because you define the elements, the components, the styles for buttons, text, colors, whatever you want, and then you basically just reuse them. You might have slightly different radiuses depending on the size of the element the radius is on. So like for a 32 pixel height button, you might have, I don't know, 4 pixels, but for 56 pixel height button, you might have 6 or 8, just to proportionally to be the same. But even here, you can, it's a discussion if like, does this really add value at our stage or not? Because as anything, even it's the same thing I would say for design and development, you kind of have to have a reason and some border, some guidelines. What's important for us? Do we need like a pixel perfect design, or we need to ship fast? Do we need something that's like reusable, scalable in development, or we need to, I don't know, push this out of the doors however we can as fast as possible? So those guidelines in a way will help in defining these stuff, because you can't have pixel perfect design and everything standardized if you don't have time to do it. But I assume it's kind of the same for developers as well. You can't have perfect code and like test at everything if you don't have time to do it, or budget or whatever.
Yeah, I think the communication is the cause for this little friction between the UI UX team and the development team.
Usually it's the communication.
I don't know why, because yeah. I have another question, if I may.
Yeah, sure.
It is about the context discovery phase that you mentioned earlier, the one where you reach out to both current and former clients or users of your. How do you do that? How do you find them? How do you reach out to them?
Through email, because if they are already users, you kind of have the email address, so we can reuse that. Sometimes in other products, we put up models in the product, so they were triggered at specific events. That's another option to do it. If you don't have either of these, then what you can do is ask around. I saw some people, we don't really do that. And in some cases, we've done what was it, usertesting.com, where you can define what kind of people you want to interview, and you interview those people. But it goes back to what you actually want to learn. Because if you want to have info on how they used your product, then you definitely need your customers or your users, or user analytics. Yeah, good one.
Oh, okay. I didn't know about that one.
So most of the times what we do is when we work with founders is they, especially early on, they have access to customers, and we talk through the founders with the customers. In other cases, we email them.
Okay. I was more curious about, I don't know, those startups where you have like business to client, and how do you reach to their clients? But I assume
it's kind of, in a way, it's similar. It might be slightly like you first business to client, the business resells, or somebody from the business uses the product.
Resales, let's say.
Oh, okay. If they resell, then yeah, it might be a bit trickier.
Resale, or I don't know, maybe let's say for an HR application.
Yeah.
It's a very common one. Let's say you have a client which is building a HR application, and then they have like 100 users. I mean, that one is a simple case because you have their emails, they have accounts. Yeah.
We usually use these two approaches most of the times. Emails, actually emailing them, or the founder emailing them, or the other one is pop-ups in the app.
Okay, well, that's
and
all.
for that we used, I don't know, I forgot the name of that one, but I can look it up. We use the tool for those models. Get site response, so get site something.
Okay. Thank you.
No worries. Any other questions if you have?
No, nothing else.
Get site control is the tool.
Okay. I'll search it. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. Then we don't have Isaac. The next one is Corina.
Hi. Hi. So I wanted to ask you, what are the biggest challenges you faced in your design career, and how did you overcome them?
I will leave it to Maria first because her list might be shorter.
I feel like we sort of already covered this topic right now. Is like, as a beginner, you kind of feel weird about your confidence, and maybe also how you handle feedback and how you get to detach yourself from what you're doing and don't take the feedback personally that you did something wrong. And that's exactly what Danielle said. How to fix that is just do your research and think about your user, not about like something that you want to build necessarily and how you want it to look, but how it's meant for the user and how it will affect them. So I feel like maybe that was one of the biggest, I don't know, challenge that I had initially, was just thinking, oh, maybe it's not good enough, maybe yeah. But I was like, they're the same steps that everybody follows. So I feel like it just comes in time as well, that you fake it till you make it. Yeah, so that's for me at least.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know. There was a bunch of them. It really depends on like just as a designer, because that's slightly different
As a
list.
designer, as I don't know, talking with the clients, from the product side.
Like when I started, it was like 15 years ago, we were using Photoshop. So that was by default one of the challenges. You had no components. You had something they called, I don't know, some mask or whatever. I even forgot the name. And basically every time it just frozen. So you couldn't reuse anything from there. And even like just talking with like putting that in a way in the hands of a developer was a complete different story than now with Figma or Zeppelin or I don't know, whatever tool you use. Because we just sent over a PSD and they have to open the PSD and they have to like look into it. It was like a whole chaos. So in a way to manage the chaos, we created documents and documentation. So I wrote a lot of shit on documentation. A lot, like this is a button and the states of the button are the following. And the size of the button is this. And if you click on it, it looks like this. And if you hover on it, it looks like this. So you had to kind of explain everything. And we were thinking that we were working Scrum. We were working waterfall by the book. But we were calling it Scrum or Agile, I guess. We figured this out when we started to go to an Agile course or workshop or what was that, and it was nothing like we were working. So processes was one of the problems, I would say, and one of the challenges. It's also like a lot, I would say that nowadays is a lot of information and a lot of buzz, and it's really hard to make sense of some of the things and really hard to make a call on like what you want to follow or trust versus what don't follow or don't trust. So in a way, the information overload, it might be a problem, and it's still for me, but it's in a slightly different area. But yeah, that's one of them. Articulating the design decisions, that also it was also part of the whole process of, I don't know, growing as a designer back then. And I was doing also shit work, so also figuring out how to improve as a designer was a different story.
So how do you articulate your design decision? Do you back up with research
Yeah.
that you have? So
This is why I actually ended up changing the whole process of how I work on a product, and I went more towards the product than just the UI part of the product. Because then when we have the discussions with our clients, it's usually around the fact that, look, these are the customers, these are your competitors, this is the flow. Okay, we tested this thing with your customers. The customer said this. So based on this, we've made these changes.
But
it's not a,
do you prioritize user needs over business goals, or how do you
that's a very
balance
tough one.
Do
I
you
usually
push your
present.
solutions with your
No, I never push
customers?
solutions. I presented my version of it, but I'm on the mindset that it's not my business, so it's not my, in the end, it's not my call.
So you're
I just
kind of
present
in
like,
a
look,
consultation.
yeah, exactly. So this is the best I can do. This is what I think you should do. If you think otherwise, it's up to you.
Mhm.
So it's not like do this, because if you don't know this, you're stupid or whatever. No, like you do whatever you want, it's your business. But in my opinion, based on my experience and what we've done together, this is the way to go. But also this has to be very articulated, because you can't do this like, oh, I've done this UI stuff and it has this shiny button, and like, I think you should implement this shiny button because people will like this because it's shiny. That's nothing, like no articulation. And unfortunately, I saw designers doing a lot of those stuff. Oh, I created this very beautiful UI and it has X amount of likes on whatever, Dribble or Behance. And let's do this because it's nice. And nice, it's not a business value.
What advice would you have for a designer that it is asked to do only the UI and not
I don't
and
don't
he
ask
wants
the
to
question.
do the part of the research, but the company doesn't want so
It's really hard to do UI if somebody doesn't do the research. Even if it's not the design, there are companies where they split, so they do UX and UI separately, or they have a researcher and the UI designer, or a PM doing the research and the UI designer. But if nobody does the research, then
Yeah.
what you end up is like a beauty contest.
yeah, I
Like,
know, but how would you convince what advice would you have for a designer that is asked to do this? He's the only designer and
find a better job.
he can't.
What I can tell you is like find another job. I don't know. It depends on the company. Some companies are eager to test these things out, but they don't know how to do it. And then in a way you have the way to like, let's try with something small and I will do some research and I will present it that way. And the other way is to create exactly what they asked for. And then if you have some spare time, and usually there are spare times, you create your version of it with the research and everything. And when you present it, look, this is what you asked for. And this is what I
Okay.
created because I've done this research.
I think you
Can I
also
say something?
Yeah.
oh, sorry.
Sorry to barge in.
Go ahead.
I was usually selling it by this gives me an informed decision on how to do this or how to do that. So information being the key, and what Daniel said, bringing them a decision. Okay, so I'm a master of my craft, and I'm doing this. I'm doing it this way, and if you don't want to do it other way, okay, it's your choice, your company.
Yeah, but this comes
I
with
mean,
the fact that you
those
are
two
the
are
master
most
of your
powerful.
craft. So you have to own your shit. It comes with that, you know, in a way. So this is why what some, and it's not just for designers, it's like a lot of people sometimes forget about this. When you recommend something, you have to recommend it in a way based on something. You've done the research, you know why you're doing the recommendation, and then you can articulate the recommendation. So it's not just, I recommend this. If you don't take this, then I don't know, whatever. You have to articulate why the option that you present is better.
And maybe in this case, something that Daniel also said in the beginning, that how he was holding a presentation about everything that we are doing and its purpose, maybe something like that would work initially as well, just to point out the benefits of research and how it impacts a product in general, or also specifically on an example, as Daniel said.
Yeah, you might just do a presentation like, look, this is how
Yeah.
usually design processes are working on bigger companies. These are the roles they have. This is how they impact and stuff like this. I wouldn't go full on like, if you invest $1, then $100,
Yeah.
like that kind of Forrester research stuff, which I don't know, it was probably from the 50s or something, basically. And so I wouldn't go that way, but there is still research that's relevant, and you can use that. But this is also goes back to the company's style and what they value and the maturity of their UX and usually processes in general regarding the product.
Or
Because
the
there
budget.
are and the budget, yeah. There are companies where you can do this stuff and they are okay to try out new things. And there are companies that say, I don't care, like just do it the old way. That's fine, it worked. So yeah,
Thank you.
no worries. Okay, then we don't have Bianca. You're the last one in the call with a question. The other ones didn't show up, unfortunately.
Hello. The problem is that I actually don't remember my questions because I did have
Oh,
no.
we probably
Can you
have
read
it
them?
somewhere.
I know I do remember part from one of them, something about creativity. That's something I'm interested in. If you
I
can.
have them here. If
Okay,
you want, I
then can you
share.
share your screen? And I think I can let you share your screen.
So sorry if you see me here changing the rooms, but I'm with my daughter and yeah.
Oh, no worries, it's fine.
Just a second. Okay. I can just read them. I don't know, something.
Okay,
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah, okay. So the first one was about creating the portfolio and how long it should take,
Yeah.
how much time we should spend on that regarding like 3 to 4 projects and the design for working on the website of the portfolio.
Yes,
Oh.
yes, because in my situation, why I wanted to put this question, because in my situation, I'm a full-time mom, part-time job, and if I have some free time, is most of it's dedicated to my daughter, and if I have time, I work on my portfolio, and this is the challenge now. And I don't have a specific time. I don't know, it takes me a little bit too long, I think. And I don't know what is the normal time in which you should do that.
Maria, do you
What's
have a portfolio?
Sorry?
She was asking if I have a portfolio. I have a portfolio based on my previous work in the startup, so what we did, but that's
Oh, okay. Okay.
yeah, and also, but I understand what you feel, because you also feel kind of stuck because you're just creating something that it's not real, like that Daniel was saying in the beginning. It's not the same work that you do normally. So I feel like everybody faces this kind of issues, and you have to be aware that your process, you don't have to follow all of those steps whilst you're designing the project at home, because you don't have the resources to do all of the steps as well. So yeah, maybe just don't be so picky about like every single thing. And just the research and the logic behind of it, but maybe
Yeah,
Honestly,
it will never be perfect. It will never be
Yeah.
perfect.
I understand. The problem is that maybe if you find a job from networking, it's okay. You don't need that much the portfolio. But when you try to apply to new jobs, they don't know you and they want to see what your creativity looks like in projects. And it's a big deal there.
Personally, what I did at a certain point, I was so done with the fact that, oh, I keep on postponing my portfolio. And it's like, oh no, we have a deadline. So up until next week, I have to finish it, and I will send a version of it and then send it. Also, another thing that I did was using Behance as a portfolio. So if I keep updating it, they will see the updated version. So don't just send your work as a PDF, or like you said, you can have a website, but that takes time. So I decided to just scratch that and put the work on Behance where everybody can see it. And if I work on it, they will see the new version. But
Okay.
Yeah. I'm big on deadlines, kind of the same. Otherwise, we never got things done.
Okay.
And I'm not necessarily a big fan of Behance, but it's like more a personal taste. You can use basically, you don't have to build the website. That's the idea. You can use different platforms where you can put up the work, so you don't have to maintain the website as well. And that takes a lot of time to actually create it. And usually the problems are around the projects in itself more than like creating the projects, not creating the portfolio in some cases. Like I would say there are maybe 2 buckets. There are designers that don't have a portfolio, so they have to create, they don't have projects, so they have to create the projects. And then just work on that, create, I don't know, 2, 3 projects, and put it somewhere, wherever. You can use Behance, Notion, UX Folio, or some other platforms as well. If the second is like you have to create the website itself, then just at the moment, don't do it. It's like upload it somewhere and send it over. It's still better than PDF. And then you have time to work on the design.
Okay, thank you.
And projects you can find kind of the same way as we discussed. Accelerators, incubators, NGOs, friends, colleagues, whatever works.
Yeah.
There were more questions here. Should I go through
there were 4.
Yeah. Okay, so the next one was regarding how do you find your inspiration for design concepts? How much of it is it research and how much of it is it creativity?
I'm not very creative. Most of it is research.
Okay. Because why I'm asking this? Because you look on Behance, on Dribble, on awards, you see all kind of crazy.
I have a whole discussion about
Very
the awards
nice,
websites,
but-
and I assume they don't work.
Okay. And regarding components, you can be so creative if there are some specification or I don't know, where's the creativity left here?
I would say that most of the designers try too hard to be creative and they ended up doing something that's worse than if they would just research and create something that's common.
Okay.
But that's more like a personal opinion. It is a personal opinion. I don't defend it. It is a personal opinion. I don't say that there are no...
As a junior, you try to impress with your designs. So...
Yeah, but they usually try too much.
Okay.
So it also
And
depends on
they
the
create...
project. So if you have
yeah.
some... Sorry.
But honestly, when you're hiring a junior, you're not looking for those kind of skills. At least I wasn't looking for those kind of skills.
Okay.
How I done. Sorry, I just one more thing, and I give you the space, the floor, whatever you want. When I was looking through the portfolios, even for mid designers, it was like I just like scroll through the whole thing like really fast. I don't read almost anything. I just scroll through the whole thing, see if they can deliver besides the blah blah that's in between, and if the work is shit, I don't read anything. Honestly, I'm don't interested in the process of a shitty work.
I've heard different opinions. As you said, other people said that with experience said that I'm actually looking into creativity because the UX process, everyone can do it without
that's not true.
Showing anything, and information is everything. So I want to see your creativity in a project. So that's why it's a little bit confusing.
There is like if you look through most of the apps, web pages, whatever, you might see that they kind of look very similar because the web itself is quite standardized in a way. So I don't say there is no space for creativity, but it's not like creativity is not just the UI part.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'm more interested in how somebody can solve a challenge or how they think about it or the research they've done and they can replicate it. It wasn't just one spark that they created for something they love and they never can do it again for something else.
Okay. Thank you.
And now, Maria, it's your place.
I will also add something and then go to the next question. So I feel like it also depends on the project. Like if you have a really serious project and you have a lot of information there and the purpose is for that information to get to the user. It's not to have a lot of animations and to be so pow. I don't know. For example, actually today I was looking on the website of other design agencies and they were amazing. Like they were so creative and they looked very good. But I was trying to look for a specific information and it was so difficult to find it. And the purpose of their website is for me to get that information. But because of all of the extra stuff, it was somehow difficult to actually get to that point. So I feel like you just need a balance in between everything. And in terms of like sparking creativity, I feel like it just helps even that you said that you're looking through other projects and you get inspired by the things around you. So just keep being curious. I feel like that can help and it can spark up different things. Yeah, so that was my answer for that question.
And for example,
So,
customers who do not know anything about UX, they are easily impressed by UI and very fancy stuff, but they do not understand the process behind. And this is why I also think that it's important, the creativity, but it's messy in my head.
It really
I don't know
depends on
to
what you
focus.
mean by creativity, because some designers mean by creativity actually getting up to the craft of the current UI designs.
Mhm.
And that's doable. It's just you have to consume a lot of content.
Okay.
In a way, that's like training your eye. So you kind of stay on Dribble, Behance, and a lot of pages to see what other designers put out. And you also check out actual products to see how those things are implemented in real products.
When you say to, what is the expression with the eye? Sorry.
To train your eye?
To train your eye. You mean the structure or the components or
Everything.
what? Find this.
Structures, components,
Yes.
colors, shapes, the hierarchy of different elements, everything.
Okay. Okay.
This is why, like, back then, I don't know if, like, I didn't really follow now a lot of those content, but I remember back then there were designers doing like the daily UI challenge, and they basically were rebuilding existing stuff
Mhm.
just to train yourself on how to think about those elements and how you put them on a page.
Mhm.
And
Maybe
even
just
for
your algorithm on Instagram, and when you scroll, you're just going to find some Figma tips of recreation.
Yeah.
follow a lot of designers, and then you will have
I
just
do
design
that,
content.
and I was trying to figure it out a little bit from you. Thank you.
No worries.
The other things were, I don't know if, what's your opinion using AI in design and people's fear of losing their job in this domain?
I don't have an opinion on AI. I don't know. It's very fuzzy, I would say.
One thing that I read at a certain point, and I found that that was a good thing, was that if you're truly thinking about UX and about designing, you're talking about empathy and about understanding other people and how they feel and interact with your product. I feel like maybe there's still a way to go until AI would reach that point. If you actually go to the point of fully doing the UX, UI, UX, not only the
Yeah.
interfaces
I would
that follow
say,
guidelines.
yeah, one thing that I would add on top is, like, I don't think the interface of chat it's the way to go for AI. Because you just the friction itself is too much. You have to know what you want to ask. You have to know how to ask it. The outcome, it's like almost like a lottery a lot of times. So it's like, it's just a lot of unknown in the process. So I don't think that the way, and this is, I was actually talking with a friend who's a founder, and he mentioned that in his opinion, actually, there's a lot of need for UX designers in the future, because the AI tools now that we have today, they are not UX friendly in a way. Because chat in itself, it's not the interface. It's in a way, it's a lazy interface. You just posting it. Like, I don't know how many of you remember MS-DOS. It's basically, for me, it's like MS-DOS again. Like, we went from MS-DOS, where we were like writing prompts, if you want, to get out something, to having an interface where you click on stuff. And now we go back to the place where we have to write down something in a very specific way to get an output. So this is why I don't think that AI, it's the interface that we have now for AI, I don't think it's the way to go. But you can see it, like, there are products that started to incorporate AI in the product, so it's not just prompts anymore. And I guess that's an interesting way to think about it, like how you incorporate something in the product in a way that users can, like almost any kind of user can interact with it and extract the value.
Okay. I also see this period a lot of courses with design and AI. UX
Yeah, because
design.
it's buzzy. Everybody wants to buy it.
Yeah.
There is like a huge
Yeah.
buzz on this. So
Okay.
yeah, there is AI generated website pages.
And it's a lot
didn't
of
really try
fear
it out.
also, because everyone promotes that AI will take all the jobs, and as junior you think about it, maybe not.
It speeds up stuff for sure.
Okay.
It definitely speeds up stuff. On the design side, I didn't really try out a lot of products, honestly. On the AI side, I tried out basically Miro's stuff and Notion stuff, but they are not necessarily design related. I once tried to work around the UI Zard or Wizard or whatever the name it is, I didn't found it that interesting, so I just dropped it. And also there was a Romanian product that was doing almost the same thing from what I know some years ago, so it's not that a new thing. But yeah, kind of that's it on the AI side. I don't know if anybody has a better answer for this. You're more than welcome to just unmute.
Anybody? No? Okay.
No, okay, cool.
And the last question from Bianca here was, what are some common mistakes you noticed junior designers make?
Oof. I would say that they try to overdo it and they don't know how to explain why they make decisions.
Okay.
And that's quite common. So it's like you want to like show everything you can do, so you throw everything on the page. And it just doesn't make sense anymore. It's like just a lot of noise. And this is very common for like they add shadows and borders and nothing really makes sense, and everything it's almost like pops and screams at you. And then you kind of it's obvious that there is not a hierarchy in between, so they try to compensate in UI in a way stuff that they lack in knowledge as hierarchy and a layout. And most of them focus too much on the UI side. On like UI side means pixels instead of like the concepts in itself, because it's easier to copy something that you see on Dribble than to understand the concept behind it. And this is why training the eye is actually about the concepts, not just the visual part. It's like how the page looks, why it has this specific way of the layout, why we have buttons in these specific areas, because most of those decisions are made consciously or unconsciously based on some stuff, on some information or some rules or things that you consume maybe for years and you might not even be aware of. So yeah, overdoing, that's one of overdoing and not knowing how to explain their decisions, I would say. These are the design related. There are a couple of ones that are person related, or some don't know how to take feedback. They are not open to learn. And some of them are looking for shortcuts, but there are no shortcuts.
Okay.
Cool. Yes, we answered all of the questions for the people that were in the call.
No, actually, Georgiana, I think she's
Oh,
here as well.
Georgiana, sorry, Georgiana.
Okay, no worries. I entered a bit late, 10 minutes late because of job, and
No problem.
I didn't know if you went through my questions already or not.
No. We went person by person, so no.
Great. Honestly, as I was listening to everything, I kind of have another question that I
Okay.
think is more important for me.
Sure, you can change it, it's no problem.
So, when someone asked about the challenges that you went through a designer, you pinpointed that improving as a designer is a different discussion. And this is exactly what I kind of wanted to ask.
Yeah, because just ask the question. I will answer. Sorry.
I kind of have I don't know, to tell you about my background story, just to have an idea. I work at a startup, a trading startup, and I have 1 year experience, and I would call myself a visual designer. So I'm not really not saying interested, but I'm not in the UX part yet. So I'm still learning about the visual. And as I go through my career and I also improve a bit on my visual skills, I'm also interested in improving my UX skills as well. And I'm not quite sure how to do it, honestly, because in parallel, I also started working on my portfolio, but it's also about the branding and the visual stuff. And I think for the future me, I'm kind of missing a lot of things. So I'm not sure how to integrate more exactly the UX part into my design process and make myself more visible in that part, let's say it. I think that would be my question, though it didn't sound like a question.
Yeah, no worries. So basically, the question is how you integrate or learn on the UX side to compensate the UI part, or not
Yes,
compensate, but
'cause,
improve on the UI side.
yes, because I'm mostly on the visual part for the
Okay.
things that I do.
Well, there are like when I started, I actually started with some what was the, oh, come on, I forgot. There were some courses, and it's not Coursera, it's the other one. I forgot the name of it. With the green logo. Udemy. Yeah, Udemy. It's Udemy. Thank you.
I think Udemy is
Isn't it
It was
purple?
green some years ago,
Oh.
from what I remember. It might not be, but whatever. So yeah, so there was a bunch of courses on Udemy. I bought some of them and also read some books. The books were Rocket Surgery Made Easy and Don't Make Me Think. Both they are written by the same guy. And I started with those two. And that kind of lays the foundation of how you think about the UX and what the UX is, and these kind of more, in a way, the more philosophical part. They are kind of old books, but the rules or the stuff that's inside them didn't change that much, I would say. It's kind of the same thing that you have inside. And then the rest of it, it's like actually doing the work. And given that
Yep.
you're in a startup, it's a good place to learn and try out these stuff. When I started, it was a similar setup. I worked in a company that had different products, and I was a designer on one of the products. So I had time to actually try out these things. Because what a lot of people do is like they learn, and they never actually do the stuff that they learn about. So it's kind of useless. The best thing that you can do is like eventually you can read these books and maybe go through basic, even on Coursera, there is the Google's UX design,
That's
whatever,
exactly
right?
what I want to say, and that's actually free. If you can just apply for, normally it's paid, but you can apply for, yeah. For example, I just said it, hey, I'm in a startup, I want to learn more. I was like, okay, you can get it for free, and you have to apply module by module, and they present very nicely a lot of the topics, so that's great.
I
as well.
started with it when it's a difficult situation for me. It's a long story, but 1 year ago I started with it, and I didn't feel like it told me anything. This is why I'm not sure if it's right for me right now, the Google course, but maybe it will speak differently to me now.
I mean, I feel like they present a lot of concepts more. Some maybe you use some of them, maybe you don't use all of them, but they give an overview. Another thing that I did as I was trying to learn more was just looking online on a lot of the forums about this, or on the Interaction Design Foundation website, just to, they have everything so nicely put out in videos and in writing as well, and they cover a lot of things, and a lot of them are for free, so we don't necessarily go for the courses, just allocate time to do that. And I feel like in time you get to know more on the UX part as well.
Thank you.
But applying those things in work, that will help a lot. If you can actually like learn something, learn, apply, because then you can poke around, what's working, what's not working, how you can solve some of the challenges that might occur. Because like we even talked here, you just define the user persona, right? It's easy to define it when people know about it, but when they don't know anything about it, then it's a different story. Or you have to create a customer journey map, same story, It's easy to do it when you have somebody to talk about this kind of stuff, and a different story when nobody actually knows how to define it.
Exactly, this is what I was thinking because, well, I can do it on my own and things like that, but I'm not quite sure if it's okay because I have no one to give me feedback on that. So I have no one to also discuss on that. But yeah, I was thinking of also looking for a mentor on the AVP list, I think.
Yeah,
Oh.
that might be a good idea, but also you have to involve somebody who's in charge of the company because user persona, customer journey map, these kind of stuff usually in their head. You just have to extract the data, put it in a way systematized in one place.
Yep.
So up to a point you can get feedback if the theoretical part it's okay, but if it's actually actionable in the company, that's something that you will get feedback from the people that you work with in the company.
Thank you.
Okay.
I also have another question that I kind of ask every senior designer. It's a bit vague, but I'm also wondering how a designer can bring value to a company.
How, in which sense?
I don't know, to be important to the company, to be seen, feel seen, things like that. I'm not sure if it makes sense.
Well, it makes sense. The value in itself depends on the company in a way, in the company setup. But I would argue that it's quite complicated to create a product when there is nobody in charge of actually doing the UX in a way or the other. And it might be a UX person, it might be a PM. But you can just throw something over to the developers and hope it will end up in a good way on the other side.
Okay. Great.
But
thank you.
yeah, you're welcome. It depends, like the value in itself, I don't know. For me, it's really hard to articulate. I know what a UX person can bring to the table, but it depends, as I mentioned, from company to company. Because if you have a good UX person, some of them it's monetary, but a lot of those things are not necessarily tied to actual value in monetary count, if you want, because you can save a lot of time on the development process because you won't develop shitty stuff and then you rework it and rework it and rework it and rework it. So you have that part. You have the opportunity, obviously, these two are very tied together. If you're working on something that's not okay, then you are not working on something that it might be okay. Then you have, these are also tied to product discovery. In my world of view of UX and product are going a lot together, and product discovery is very tied to this topic. And then the UX comes close to defining how the product operates, works, and maybe even looks in some cases. And it's really hard to just put all this burden on the engineering side. It doesn't mean that you can't or you shouldn't work with them in defining the product, but these roles are in companies for specific reasons. And with the competition that's out there, it's quite obvious that you need somebody in charge of this side as well, not just the development side.
Making sure that you're building the right version of your application and it actually fulfills its purpose and meets the user's needs.
No, you put it so nicely. But yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to say in a lot of other words.
Great. Thank you for your answer.
You're welcome. Do you have any other questions?
I, for one, no.
Cool.
Any
Then
others maybe? Say, or I don't know what time it is.
Well, 3 minutes over, but we can stay like 5 more minutes if anybody has other questions or anything else that they want to say.
Hi, Daniel.
Hi.
I've been listening to you about AI in your job. It seems that you are not using it.
We are using some basic stuff, but nothing very complicated yet.
which are the use cases you use AI in your process, like research,
Extracting
wireframing?
insights from research sometimes. Content, yes. Wireframing, no, because I'm a very big believer on pen and paper stuff yet. And also because during the workshops, the concept in itself is pen and paper, and we are doing it separately. So each of the person that are taking part of the workshop, they create their own concepts. So this is why we don't do the any kind of AI wireframing stuff. I don't know. Do we do anything else with AI, Maria? Besides content, research, mostly extracting
Like in
stuff from
terms
research, I
of
would say.
research, it's very important though to like also not only rely on AI entirely, because you don't know for sure where that information is coming from and if it's the real thing as well. So maybe, as Daniel said, to like extract information from the research that we previously did. So don't maybe rely entirely for AI as the source for the research. Does it make sense what I just said?
Yeah. I use AI quite often, and I find very frequently incoherent data or suggestions. Many times it's not data, it's just suggestions. But I think you work with a specific use case, like let's tackle the rotation. Well, you don't start. Maybe you start, but I know you mostly because you reshape things. You reshape solutions. And that comes with a use case and with a persona, eventually with a customer journey, or whatever. But when you start from scratch, have you done it, or do you use it, like, for trying to have the first idea or the first understanding?
Okay, so that's scratch. Like coming up with ideas? No, still no.
All right.
Like even when we are working, like I was working with incubator level startups some years ago, like 1 or 2 years ago. And even for them, we kind of tried to work it backwards. So if they had an idea of a product, we went backwards, who can use this? And in these cases, like ideating on maybe who can use this kind of product, it might work. But back then it wasn't widespread, the AI use case, so we didn't reuse that. But in a way, it's kind of the same process. So you can use it in ideation, but in the end, you still make the calls based on your best knowledge, I would say.
Yeah, I have seen some presentations of people who starts like completely AI native. They start by just a problem, understanding the persona, all AI based. They do the information architecture, then they do a wireframing. I've seen this development process completely AI based, excluding backend. And
I think I know what you're talking about. Honestly, from what I saw, most of those are like concepts of this would be a nice thing to have, but nobody actually implements it. Because in the end, you go back to basic stuff. It's like a problem needs to be solved. Somebody has a problem. You still have to talk with those people. Though there is the synthetic user research stuff that's out there in the AI side, I'm not a big believer on that. Because I don't know, it's like if that would be the case, like, and that would work, in my opinion, like what costs for Airbnb or the other large ones to just internalize the whole thing?
Yeah, I understand.
So I would say it's an interesting playground yet. And definitely there will be improvements there, because even like Dovetail and these large user research tools, they are using AI up to a point. So there is definitely a lot of information they will extract, and they will train the models that they have. But I don't know how good they are working yet.
Like synthetic users, you have been using them?
No, I'm not. I'm very against that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very against synthetic users. That's
I
personal.
understand. All right. Thank you.
No problems. Thanks for asking. Cool, then I guess that's it for now. We still have some questions, but we will answer them with Maria probably tomorrow for people that didn't show up. Yeah, we will put the recording on YouTube and send it over to each of you. And with the recording of tomorrow's or next days or whenever, when we'll do that one, we'll do the same.
And also,
Thanks.
if
Yeah,
any
sorry.
other people that I mean didn't sign up with the questions, and if you have any questions, just send them as well, and we can record those too.
Yeah. Well, thanks. Awesome. Thanks for your time. Thanks for being here. Hopefully you got some interesting answers for your interesting questions. Probably we'll do something similar in a month, I assume. We'll see how it goes. Cool. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Nice day.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Welcome. Bye.
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 Bye.